Next up, it's Michaela from Little Rock. I recently found out that both of my parents in their late 40s have nothing saved for retirement. They each had different 401ks from previous employers and cashed out after leaving every job. My dad is a small business owner now, and the likelihood of me getting him to file paperwork to open up a retirement account for the business is slim. What are the accounts that he can open up for himself? And if I were to convince him to open retirement plans for the business, which would be the best accounts considering he is a one-man operation? Michaela, thanks very much. Lots of opportunities here for your dad, so that's the good news. Bad news is, and this is for everybody else listening too, because I obviously don't want to beat a dead horse. It happened. He cashed out the 401ks. But the reason that is something you don't want to do is because if you are not 59 and a half, there's going to be a 10% penalty just for pulling out. So if you pull out $100,000, bam, $10,000 off the top in penalties. And then you've got the tax situation because more than likely the 401k was pre-tax made or created with pre-tax contributions, and so those have to come out and are taxed as ordinary income. So depending on what your overall income is, you could potentially be getting hit 30, 35, maybe even 40% on the overall penalties and taxes on your withdrawal. And then you have the lost growth, which was pointed out in the question right before when we talked about having that money in and staying invested for a long period of time. You've lost that if you've cashed out. So of the options of a 401k, we would certainly discourage that. But again, to Michaela's point, what's happened happened. So let's move forward from there. Nothing saved for retirement in your 40s can be a very scary thing. But again, Janet, he, as a small business owner of a one-man operation, has lots of options.
Absolutely. So one of the things that she asks are, what are the accounts that he can open up for himself? And then there was this shift to focus on from the business aspect. So we're going to approach this that way. We're going to look at personal accounts that could be opened regardless of whether he's a business owner or not. And then we're going to shift to what could be done because he is a business owner. So on the personal side, if he wanted to go that route, there's Roth and or traditional IRAs. I said and or because technically you could do a little bit in both, but I would make the decision of which one to go with. And we look at that. If you qualify to contribute to either one based on your income, we look at that then based on a time horizon to retirement. And if you're more than 5 years out, we would go with the Roth because it's going to give you that tax-free growth over time. And so obviously he does have that longer time horizon. So as long on an income basis, as long as he qualifies to contribute to the Roth, that's the direction we would go. So there's an opportunity to contribute $7,000 a year in that direction. And then there's $1,000 for over 50 and up. Those who fall into that age group, you can contribute an additional $1,000. And then there's also non-qualified accounts. So let's talk, Scott, a little bit about the tax treatment on Roth and traditional and non-qualified. A lot of times people will ask us, well, are your Roth investments good? Or, something like that, because they think that title is tied to the type of investment. Let me be very clear that whether it's Roth or traditional or non-qualified, you can have really any type of investment. Those other labels that I just went through are really only the tax distinction on it. So with a Roth, you're going to contribute after-tax dollars, and that money grows tax-deferred and it's tax-free. If you wait until retirement to withdraw that, you're going to have access to that growth tax-free. With the traditional IRA, you're going to get your tax break at the beginning rather than the end. So you can take a deduction on whatever amount you're contributing, but when you withdraw in retirement, that's going to be taxable to you. With non-qualified, there's not a tax break. So it doesn't qualify for special tax treatment. That's where we get the name non-qualified. So think about things even like your checking account or your savings account. Not that those are investments, but they are non-qualified accounts. They don't qualify for special tax treatment. So you're going to put the money in. You're going to get a 1099 for whatever interest is earned in that each year moving forward. So non-qualified accounts are also an option, and there's no limit on how much you can contribute there.
So that's the personal side. So that goes for anybody that earns income, right? But as a small business owner, and particularly the fact that you've told us, Michaela, that your dad is a one-man operation, there are some really attractive options to get some money into retirement accounts. And I know that when you're a small business owner, you're focused almost exclusively sometimes on growing the business and making money today, making money this year, the revenue side of that. But you got to consider your exit plan. And this can be a great opportunity to get some money into retirement accounts. So let's talk about if you're a high earner. A great option could be a defined benefit. I saw the D there.
Death is not necessarily a great option.
No,
I don't know.
that's going to happen. We don't know when. A defined benefit plan. So you may have heard that phrase before, and what do you think of when you hear it? Probably a pension, right? Because that's what happens when you work for a company for a long period of time that offers that pension, and you get a monthly benefit, a monthly check in retirement. You can actually create those as a business owner, and particularly if you're a one-man operation and you don't have to do it for anybody else, if you have a lot of income that you are paying yourself, you can potentially have really large contributions and save money on taxes now. So these are pre-tax contributions into a defined benefit plan that could be set up through a financial advisor. And then the contributions, the amount you contribute, are determined by the future benefit that would be set up. So there'd be a calculation there. It's much like a pension in your retirement. That calculation would say, hey, if in retirement at age 65 you want this month in monthly income, this is how much you need to put in on an annual basis while you're working, and then you'll have that set up in your retirement. If you have questions about that, we can certainly help Michaela's dad. We can also help anybody that's listening with regard to that. There's also a SEP IRA, and these are the probably easiest and quickest to establish. You can set that up very easily, open it. It can be self-directed. It's an IRA, but because that SEP stands for Simplified Employer Pension, so the money is coming. It's not really a pension, but it is an account that is set up and contributed to through the employer side. So as a one-man operation and a business owner, you can actually contribute up to 25% of the employee's income annually. It's considered pre-tax. There is a cap up to $69,000. So if that 25% of income exceeds $69,000, you'd actually have to be held to $69,000. And again, it's on the employer side. So it helps on both sides of the taxation problem. You can put in pre-tax dollars for the employee, and the employer is getting to take the tax benefit as well. The withdrawals are taxed at ordinary income tax rates, and a single member here is the key. So if you're listening and thinking, hey, I'd love to have that as a business owner, the reason you don't want to have a lot of employees and get into a SEP IRA, establishing a SEP IRA, is because whatever you do for one employee, you have to do for all. So it can be a little cost prohibitive for an employer if you have a lot of employees. But it does work well with a husband and wife team.
Yeah, we had a very similar question last week where we addressed that as well. And so we talked about in I'll just say a closely held family business where you don't have a lot of other team members who are not related, then it might still be an option. So we don't want you to think that it has to be a singular person who is employed at the company, but that is oftentimes what we see. Scott, another option is a solo 401k. That one is not as easy and quick to establish, but it is another option that you have. And one of the advantages of that is that it does have higher contribution limits. Those can be a higher number depending on what your income is, because the previous plan that we talked about is percentage based and has those caps. So this can give you an opportunity to contribute more. It's going to allow for employee and employer contribution. If that's important to you for it to come from both sides of the equation, then that's certainly a possibility. The total on this cannot exceed $69,000. You've also got that catch up for 50 and up, ages 50 and up. So that is a catch up amount of $7,500 in any given year. And that changes every year, but that's where we are for calendar year 2024. This is going to require third-party reporting. And as a business owner, I probably just sighed in mentioning that because it's not something that I personally would want to deal with. It has more fees and just more maintenance, I'll say, to have to pay attention to. But it can save you in taxes, so there are some opportunities to look at, but that one is definitely the most high-maintenance one of the ones that we have discussed today.
Yeah, so you think about Michaela's dad in his 40s, nothing saved for retirement. Can sound like a really dire situation, but we've just outlined how you can get tens of thousands of dollars, whichever plan would be ultimately right for you. It should be determined by working with your financial advisor, but you can get tens of thousands in on an annual basis. If you work another 20 years, look at that. Look what could happen there.
Yeah, and I'll say, as a business owner, I mean, Gen Wealth will be 19 years old this summer, and when we first started the business, we couldn't do a retirement plan. We were a retirement planning company, and we couldn't do a retirement plan for the business because we just weren't there yet. So I do understand that, but I'll say to you, as business owners in general, not just to Michaela's dad here, but it's important to realize the growth that your firm is seeing, whatever your business is. Realize the growth that your business is having, and at some point you've got to draw a line in the sand and go, okay, nobody else is responsible for my retirement but me. And so I need to take the time now. It's really difficult as a business owner to go, I'm going to block off time and do this, anything that feels outside of the business, but this is for your future and is really important to take the time to do it.